Welcome to TRIO Mid-Semester Stress Relief and Time Management and Test Taking Strategies, the PowerPoint workshop video version. So, let's start with test taking strategies. Before the test, make sure that you know your professors. That means taking the opportunity to go to office hours, to ask questions about the content and material, and then also making sure that you know when you're taking notes, how they emphasize what information they want you to know that's most important, figure out the way that you should study best for their class, and then specifically know the test. So once you know that the test is on your radar, as soon as the professor brings it up, ask those important questions such as how the test is going to be made up. Is there going to be short answer? Is there going to be multiple choice? Ask how many points are assigned to each type of question, each section of the test, and then make sure to ask how much time you're going to have on the test. Is it an at-home test? Is it open book? Make sure you ask all those questions. Study throughout the semester. This is really important. You should be reviewing your notes as you're going through the class. If there are any in-class quizzes, that's a good time to practice studying, and then when you get finished, you can review the quiz, see what information you still don't understand, and then that's when you can start going to study sessions or go to professors' office hours or talk to your peers. And then review prior to the test day. Specifically, that's more towards right before, the week before, the week of. You'll still have homework in other classes, so it's better to do a little bit every day instead of just cramming the night before. Test yourself first. Ask yourself, what questions can the test ask to determine if someone understands the concept? This is a good way, a teacher strategy, I'm an English education major, that you can test yourself to see what questions that your professor would be asking you. And anything that you come up with could be something that's on the test. So there's no wrong answers there. As long as it's a question that can show knowledge, then it probably could be a possibility on the test. So start the strategy of testing yourself first. Arrive early the day of the test so that you have time to relax. If you know that you're a nervous person, get there in time so you can set your bag down, go take a walk, go to the restroom, walk outside, call your support system, send some positive vibes to yourself, and then be positive when you sit down for the test. Also, arriving early gives you time to talk with other students. You get to see what they're really worried about, and if it's something that you're all worried about, then that might either be something that's on the test, or it might be something that your professor is aware of and will purposely not put on the test. So it's good to get those other opinions from other people who have studied. Chew gum. If you're a person who studies while eating or studies while eating snacks, it's often a good way to help your memory by chewing gum. It sort of adds a sensory experience to the notes that you have for that class, and so if you chew that same type of gum, they say that will help you remember things when you're actually having the test. And then being able to arrive early helps you hear those last minute instructions from the professor. There might be questions that they're like, oh, the computer will tell you that you're wrong, but I'm going to go in and grade it later. Or one of the questions, my first hour told me it has a typo in it, so it's going to put that A is the right answer when really it's C. So you get to hear those last minute instructions. And then go with the flow. So one of the sources that you'll find on the end of this PowerPoint defines flow as content knowledge plus self-efficacy plus test wiseness. So if you feel confident in the knowledge and you feel confident that you've done your best studying and you know these test taking strategies, just go with the flow. If your gut says that this is the answer, it probably is. Trust yourself. During the test, these are some tips that I got from Dr. Wall, the Dean of Education. He used to make standardized tests for like the ACT and things like that. And so he said these are some tricks that he learned that he's allowed to say since he doesn't do that anymore. So test, translate, eliminate, solve, substitute, and tricks. So first, translate. Look at the question. What are the key words that they want you to know? So for example, if you're having a biology test If they ask you about DNA replication, there's a bunch of different stuff that you need to know inside of knowing that term. So what synonyms can you replace it with, or what aspect of that are they really asking you about? And same thing with the answers. If there's some keywords that are in there, what do you know has nothing to do with DNA replication? Immediately take that answer out. One thing that people always get stuck over is, well, half of the answer is correct, so the whole thing could be correct still too. No, if half of the answer is wrong, then that answer is wrong completely. So what can you eliminate by looking at the keywords? When you're solving it, trust your gut. Again, studies say that if you have that right answer in your mind, then that's probably the right answer that you need to have. If you still feel a little bit nervous about it, you can always flag it and come back to it. But most of the time, with that first answer that pops into your head, even if you don't readily acknowledge it consciously, your unconscious, subconscious knows that it's right. And then tricks. Error answers, flags, breaks, evidence, brain prep, clock, and reading comprehension. So error answers. If there are answers that have the always, never, must, not, and a lot of times teachers will put these in all caps, look for those because that can really help you narrow down what answers are the right ones. Use the flag option on Canvas when you're taking a test. That way you can make sure that if there's a really hard question, you can flag it, come back to it later, but you make sure that you get the whole test finished as well. Take a break if you can. Honestly, you can't do that on a lot of campus tests, but if you have to take a standardized test, you're afforded a break. If you need that 10 minutes to go take a walk, your eyes are hurting, things like that, go and take that break. Use your evidence. So when you come back to those questions that you flagged, when you look through all your answers, you've looked for the keywords, you've eliminated the ones that really don't work, you're down to your last 2 or 3, justify whatever answer you choose to yourself. So if you're like, I think DNA replication has to deal with this, this, and this because I remember this part from my notes. If you can justify the answer to yourself, that'll also help you feel more confident about it, and that probably is the right answer. Brain prep. So before you come to the test, have breakfast, have a meal, have a snack, whatever you need to do. Dr. Wall was talking about it's really good to have high protein, high carb snacks before you come. So like trail mix bars, chocolate bars, things like that, dark chocolate bars, because that can help your brain have more energy while you're going through that test. And then if there's a clock on your test, which there are on Canvas tests and standardized tests, there's 2 options. If that's something that helps you pace yourself, know how much time you have for each question, use the clock feature. If you don't, ask your professor, or on a standardized test, there's the hide option. If not, ask your professor if you could put a sticky note on it. I know on Canvas, sometimes if you scroll pretty far, you won't be able to see the clock anymore. So if that's something that gives you anxiety, try to scroll through those first questions real quick so that you don't have to look at the clock anymore. And then reading comprehension. Something Dr. Wall talked about, which is really true, is a lot of times the questions really have to do with whether or not you can understand it. They're not testing so much of your knowledge as much as they're testing, unfortunately, your reading comprehension. So make sure when you're looking at those questions that you understand what they're asking you, and of the answers, you understand what the answers are saying. Test taking strategies during the test, part 2. Do a memory dump. So at the start of the test, if it's on paper or if it's on the computer and there's like an essay section down below, dump everything you know, think you might be tested on, and fear you might forget. This can help a lot with your test anxiety. You're able to get everything out onto the page. You feel more comfortable as you're going through the test because you can refer back to stuff that you know you've already studied for. Plan how to use your time, pace yourself. That sort of goes back to knowing the test, and also as well as using that clock feature. How many sections of the test are there? If you only have an hour and there's 50 questions, you can only spend a minute or 2 on each question. Do that math in your head so that you're able to budget how much time you have for things. How long will it take you to complete each section? Are you feeling more confident in the multiple choice, or are you feeling more confident in the short answer portions of the test? Know that. Finished early. Review for grammar if you have a short essay question or a long essay question. Review for those difficult questions where you put those flags. Look at those answers again. And then test completion. Make sure that all of those answers are the one that you feel most confident in. And then after the test, be positive. Go meditate, do yoga, modulate your breathing. One phrase that I found was breathe in the flower, breathe out the candle. So basically you're supposed to breathe in for about 9 seconds, hold it for about 5, and breathe out for 7 out loud through your mouth, like you're blowing out a candle. So find something peaceful and calming to do that gets you out of that testing mode. And then unfocus. So watch videos, listen to a podcast or music, hug a pet, and also take the time once you feel calm, like a day or two later, since the test is probably going to take a while to grade if there's a section for the professor to grade themselves, or if it's a standardized test, self-analyze. You're going to have more than one test in a semester. So think about what part was really easy for you, what part was really difficult for you. If you have a comprehensive exam at the end, maybe note those things in your notes, like, hey, this is what we were testing on that I was still really confused about. When it comes to studying for my final, I need to really look at these aspects. And then once you get your scores back, I'm not even going to say if you're comfortable. You should, if you have a low score, meet with your professor to discuss how to improve. Then we're going to get into some time management strategies. I think I have 10 different time management strategies on here. So the first one, and the links to them are going to be at the end of the PowerPoint. The first one is the Eisenhower matrix. So basically you organize all of your tasks that you have into 4 quadrants. You have the urgent, important, that little picture on the right, urgent, not important, not urgent, but still important, and then not urgent, not important. You're going to get rid of all the tasks that are in the not urgent, not important quadrant, and then you're going to work on the urgent, important tasks first, and then work your way around. So then the next would be the urgent but not important, and then the not urgent but important. And so this is useful for leaders and critical thinkers. On each one of these, there's going to be who they're useful for. Try to think maybe about how you approach the way that you work. So if you're a leader, you probably have a lot on your plate. Or if you're like in an organization or something like that, maybe you want to organize your priorities for the day. What homework you need to get done versus what social activities you want to do. Critical thinkers, if you know that you really like to analyze a topic to be able to understand it, what topics do you feel like are those super urgent important ones, and what are the ones that you're like, I think I'm doing pretty okay in this class, I can come back to this at a later date. And so important, also this can be used for life goals. So important can also be what your long-term goals are or values, and then urgent is whatever you feel is immediate. The next one, rapid planning method, also called RPM. So first you're going to list all of your tasks on a blank sheet of paper. You're going to chunk common tasks together. So if one of your tasks is clean your room and the other task is, iron your clothes, you're going to chunk those together, but studying will be its own separate chunk. And then you're going to create these RPM blocks. So the picture on the right is you're going to make a 3 chart on your paper. It's going to be task, the desired result, and how to complete it. So you're going to list each of those chunks, list the tasks individually, what the result is that you want in those areas, and then how you're going to complete that. And then complete an empowering role for yourself. I forgot the picture on here, but like put at the top of your paper or for each task, like if it's for schoolwork, say, oh, I'm going to be the study queen for this amount of time. Or if it's for doing chores in your house, I'm going to be the taskmaster for this type of task for the day. So give an empowering role for yourself. It's just a cute little way to motivate yourself. So this is useful for working students because a lot of the times, I know myself, I have a notebook for each of the jobs on campus that I have where I write down everything that I need to do for each of those, and that's the only way that I stay on track. If I don't have that notebook, I really can't work for the day, honestly. So having that, you're able to say, oh, these are the chunked tasks that I have for this specific area. This is what I want in results. This is how I'm going to complete it. And then also for life goals, this can work very well for your long-term goals. Next is the pickle jar theory. So imagine a jar filled with sand, pebbles, and rocks if you look down at the bottom. So sand are the disruptions, pebbles are the tasks for later or tasks that can be done by others, and the rocks are the super important stuff. So you're going to make a task list on a blank sheet of paper, and then you're going to number them and probably get another sheet of paper and write them down in order. So you're going to put the rocks first, those super important tasks. You're going to put those pebbles later, those tasks that are important but not really urgent. And then you're going to put the sand at the bottom. So if one of your things is to check your email, but you know that you never really get emails, then that might be at the bottom of your list. That might be a sand object. Or if you're working on homework that week, but you also really want to go to some organization event, but you're trying to hold yourself accountable, sand for that week might be that organization meeting, because it would disrupt you and keep you away from your homework. And then after you make that task list, you're going to put to the side of each task honest times that it'll take you to do each one. So for me personally, if it's homework that involves a textbook, for example, if it's more than 30 pages, it takes me like 2 hours plus. And then you schedule your task, you chunk it up by how much work you can get done in 6 hours of an 8-hour day, which is generally what every student is on. And so this is good for visual thinkers because you can sort of think about it as, oh, well, that's just a sand item. I don't need to spend as much time on this. Or, oh, this is a big rock. Like, I need to move this rock out of the way so I can work on pebbles. And then it also helps with concrete thinkers. So if you need to see those things on a sheet of paper in front of you, then this is an area that can help you. Next is the time blocking method. This one's pretty the simplest one. A lot of the times this is what an agenda or a planner will look like. So you divide a paper in two. You list on one side the time, so you can do it in 30-minute intervals or 1-hour intervals. Something that I found really useful on this strategy, apparently Elon Musk uses this strategy, and he's pretty productive, as we know, for the good or the bad. And so what he says is he does it in 15-minute blocks. And so like if you have a task that you want to do from 5 to 6, you're really only going to do it from 5:15 to 5:30. That way you leave a buffer in there, so if you need to go take a walk, if you need to listen to music and get your head out of the game, if you need to go to the restroom, you give yourself a buffer in between each one, which is more realistic. And then that way you get to spend more time actually doing the task and you feel more accomplished if there's a distraction or something that gets in the way of you completing that work for a whole hour. So again, it's useful for working students and then also analytical thinkers. If you really need to have those time blocks right in front of you, it's really helpful. I did this for the first 3 years of my time in college. I've gotten to the point where I'm really a lot better at remembering what tasks I need to do. So my planner doesn't have time in there, it just has the dates, but I found it really useful to have these time blocks in there, especially when it came to like group projects and things like that, because I was able to say, nope, I can't work from this time, I'm going to lunch, or things like that. The next one is the 80-20 rule, or also called the Pareto analysis. So basically the way that it goes is 80% of the time that you spend on a task is useless, and only 20% of it is actually the results that you're going to get. But if you spend only 20% of the time on those vital tasks really diligently, then you'll get 80% of the results. So it's sort of like a back and forth. You can see the picture on the right. So how this strategy works, you're going to list out your problems. So I spend too much time on my phone, or I don't study enough for my homework, things like that. And then you're going to ID the root causes of them. So social, academic, personal are some good ways to categorize them. You can do motivation versus time management versus procrastination, whatever categories end up working for you. And then you're going to assign a score to each problem. So the higher the number, it's the more important. So like if you really feel like the reason why you can't study is because you keep looking at social media, that might be your number 1 on there. And then you're going to group the problems by the cause that you already ID'd on step number 2. And then you're going to add up those scores in each group. And so whichever group has the highest score, those are the tasks that you need to work on fixing or completing first. And then, of course, most important, take action and actually work to get those to the 20% of the time where you have 80% of the results, instead of spending 80% of the time and only getting 20% of the results. This is useful for problem solvers and analytical thinkers. My favorite, the eat that frog technique. This is a quote from Mark Twain. Eat a live frog the first thing in the morning and nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day. So basically, a frog is any difficult or super important task. So you're going to set a goal, you're going to write it down on paper, A lot of these really focus on writing it down because really seeing it helps you visualize and know like how important it is, and it helps you remember it as well. You're going to set a deadline for that goal. Something that they say when you get more comfortable using this, or if you actually want to make sure that you do it, is you set a deadline that's actually a not reasonable one. So if you need to do your homework and you know it normally takes you 2 hours, say that your deadline is to finish the whole chapter in 1 hour. You're going to create a task list, so what tasks you need to complete to get to that goal. So I don't know, studying for an hour, getting out your highlighters, reading the chapter, figuring out what's important in the section, going through and highlighting, rereading it again, things like that. You're going to organize the list by importance and difficulty. So probably in that list, the hardest thing is going to be actually reading the chapter. The less harder thing is going to be going in and highlighting it. The second hardest thing might be going back and rereading it after you highlight it. And then you're going to take action and do the nastiest frog first. So for that one, it would be reading the book. That's going to be the hardest thing. You're going to sit down and you're going to do that first, instead of maybe skimming over the sections and figuring out which one is important. And then you're going to repeat that daily until you achieve your goal. So this is useful for abstract thinkers, long-term goals, and those who work last minute, because you're able to get those tasks down in front of you. The getting things done method. So the really important one in this is that it's for people who struggle with single focus or struggle with feeling overwhelmed. And so that's what the quote over there to the side is I can't do everything. So how you do this method is you list the tasks that you need to do, and you're only going to do one simple thing. Is it actionable or not? So you need to stop using social media. Is that an action that you can do? Yes. But maybe you need to go to a social event. Is that an action you need to do with all the tasks that you have? Is that actionable? No. You're going to do that for each of your tasks. You're going to sort them by a due date. So you're going to put on there what needs to be done when. So maybe if it's academic only, you need to study for a test, but then you also have a homework assignment that's due at 11:59. What's more actionable? The one you got to do at 11:59. And then you're going to reflect for priority and completion, which is that step that I just said right there. And then you're going to engage and only do what you can do now. A really important thing that I feel like a lot of people get overwhelmed with when they put those tasks down on paper is they don't stop to then sort out what they can reasonably accomplish by the end of the day. So in all these methods, an important step is knowing whether you can actually complete it, and then knowing how much you can complete in a day and limiting yourself to just that. That way you don't feel overwhelmed, you feel less stressed because you feel like you set a reasonable goal for yourself, but then also you're able to see all those other goals that you need to reach later. The next one is Parkinson's Law. So this is a quote from Parkinson. Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So basically the way that Parkinson's Law works is if you're the type of person who procrastinates a lot, or you work well under pressure, if you give yourself 3 hours to do a chapter, it's going to take you 3 hours to do your chapter, according to Parkinson. But if you give yourself 1 hour to do the chapter, it might only take you 2, or it might take you 1 hour and 30 minutes because you're holding yourself to that 1 hour time limit. So instead of an actual strategy, these are some tips to work according to Parkinson's Law. Work without a computer charger. You know you have an assignment at 11:59 and your battery is at half, so you can only work for about 2 hours. Guess what's going to make you get that essay done? Your computer dying. So that's an idea. Complete tasks early, not late. You know you have a project that's due next week. Tell yourself, put in your agenda that the assignment is due this week. That way that you get it done and then you have time to review and look it over later. Sort of the same for the next one. Set a deadline and cut it in half, and then also limit times for tasks and stick to it, sort of like the computer charger. And then I think this is the last one, the Pomodoro technique, which I've actually started using, and it's very useful for me because I can go down a rabbit hole of looking at TikTok videos and YouTube shorts, and so this helps me find the best of both worlds. It's useful for creative thinkers, burnout, having a hard time focusing, but I also want to add on there if you're a person who has a really good time focusing, but you found yourself being a little bit procrastinating now that it's the beginning of the semester, you really haven't gotten to the groove of it, this can also help as well. So you choose a task that you're going to do. Say you need to read that book chapter. You're going to set a timer. Let's say about 30 minutes. Then you're going to focus. When that timer rings, the Pomodoro is also basically, I think it's the Italian word for tomato or something like that. He's the one who made the tomato timer. So that's why you always have to put a timer in there. So you're going to focus and you're going to do that task. When the timer rings, you're going to place a check mark on the sheet of paper because you're like, oh look, I stayed focused for this whole amount of time. And then you're going to take the 3 to 5 minute break. You're going to keep doing that same amount of time. So I'm going to keep working 30 minutes, take a 3 to 5 minute break, and work 30 minutes, take a 3 to 5 minute break. After you're able to put 4 check marks on your paper, you can increase that time that you take a break. It's sort of like rewarding yourself in the moment. So if you're able to work for that example, you'd be able to work for 2 hours, but you're also able to take 30-minute breaks and you're consistently able to come back to that task, guess what? You can max that out to 15 minutes now if you want to, but you still got to keep those 30 minutes. I'm going to say if you break that 30 minutes or whatever that original timer is, then you have to start all over. Alright, so stress relief activities. There are 6 of these on here. This is from a de-anxiety book that I have, a de-stress and de-anxiety book that I have that I work with my mentees sometimes. I've put it in my online check-ins. I don't know if they've noticed that, but these are some activities that I thought would be really helpful when it comes to studying or just taking that time to take time for yourself. So for this one, the quote for it, each one has the quote that goes with the activity. You Are Your Best Thing from Toni Morrison's Beloved. It's a great book. Also very scary. It's sort of like a ghost story, but either way, it's a good quote. So imagine yourself in your ideal future. Describe how you feel in this future. What are the thoughts you have? How do you spend your time? What is the lesson you live by? I feel like that question is really the most important one. And then after you've reflected on that, take 10, 15, 20 minutes. Dream that ideal future. It's always nice to manifest good dreams and good hopes for yourself. Write a letter of encouragement from your future self to your current self. Be kind. Include why you're proud of yourself for choosing to keep going. And then you can frame that letter. I like to, when I write letters to myself from my future self, I like to put it in my agenda or put it in one of my class notebooks in a random page. So whenever I reach that page during the semester, I get to pull out that letter and read that note, and I'm just like, oh, look at you keeping going and working towards your degree, and now you've got a house or being a successful teacher. So it's really nice to have that note from yourself as an encouragement, and it just builds up that morale. Second stress relief activity, the quote from this is from Amelia Earhart. The more one does and sees and feels, the more one is able to do. So write about a situation you encounter daily that makes you nervous. Close your eyes and visualize the situation going positively after you write down when it makes you nervous. Imagine all the details of it going positively and how peaceful you feel throughout the experience. And then go back to that nervous experience, crumble it up, tear it into confetti, and throw it away. And then, after you've imagined that positive experience, you get to write about it. So write about it in vivid detail, everything that you thought about it going right, even if that's as simple as going into office hours and asking a question that's really been burning your mind for the test, or if it's trying out for dance company, something like that. And then keep that new outlook as a reminder to yourself that it's possible. A lot of the times, the only thing that's stopping us is us. So being able to have that reminder is a sort of stress relief. Stress relief activity 3. Write about the ways you can shine light and be supportive when, and then this is just a little list. So a friend is disappointed, you are disappointed, a friend is worried, you are feeling worried, a friend is scared, you are scared, a friend is excited, you are excited, a friend is sad, you are sad. And the quote is, there are 2 ways of spreading light, to be the candle or the mirror that receives it, by Edith Wharton. Stress relief activity 4. This quote is, I exist as I am, that is enough, by Walt Whitman. So, for this activity, instead of telling yourself you should be somewhere else, which even I do, identify why where you are is enough. So for each category, consider, reflect, and answer the following. I should feel. Instead I feel. What this is telling me. So the 5 categories are that you're going to answer those questions for: family, work, spirit, body, health, and love. And then you reflect personally on what those answers tell you and what areas you need to work on or maybe make some progress in, or what areas that you're doing well in. Activity 5. The quote is, "Your fear will always lead you to the magic. My friend Fear." I'm not really sure if this is a book or if the author was just saying, like, this is a positive of fear, but it's from My Friend Fear. So for this, you're going to answer the following questions for 2 fears you'd like to work through. So the questions are, why I feel afraid, what this fear is telling me I want most, instead of feeling afraid, I wish I felt, and I can begin feeling this way by what? Stress relief activity 6, and this should be the last one. The quote is, "What you're supposed to do when you don't like a thing is change it. If you can't change it, change the way you think about it." By Maya Angelou from her book, Wouldn't Take Nothing from My Journey Now. So consider 5 things in your life you don't like. And then you're going to make a 3-column chart on a piece of paper, and you can put them in categories. So the first one is going to be what you don't like, which is the 5 things, how you can change it, and how you can think about it. And this can be either in a positive light or how you can change how you're already thinking about it to be more positive. And then on here are the list of the time management and test taking strategies. If you want to get more stress management strategies, feel free to reach out to me. My email is s536700, and I can send you screenshots from my book on stress management and de-anxiety. But this has been time management, test taking strategies, and midterm stress relief. Hope it helps.